For history, I will be reading from this book. I've already gotten permission from the author. I'm going to be recycling this book as it has been recycled and I took it in college. It contains my notes and I will update it as I read it. This is Discovering the Humanities, the third edition. It is by Henry M. Sayre from the Oregon State University with my signature when I went to Phoenix University. It does contain my notes. We're going to skip straight to the prehistoric past and the earliest civilizations, the river cultures of the ancient world. The objectives 1.1 discuss the rise of culture and how developments in art and architecture reflect the growing sophistication of prehistoric cultures. 1.2 describe the role of myth in prehistoric culture. 1.3 distinguish among the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia and focus on how they differ from that of the Hebrews. 1.4 account for the stability of the Egyptian culture. On 6/11/2022, I read this over Twitch. I forgot to update over Twitch, but this happened during the Paleolithic era. On a cold December afternoon in 1994, Jean-Marie Chabot and two friends were exploring the river canals and the steep cliffs along the Ariège River Gorge in southern France. After descending into a series of narrow passages, they entered a large chamber. There, beams from their headlamps lit up a ground of drawings that would astonish the three explorers. Figure 1.1, which is displayed here. Figure 1.1 is a cave painting with horses, Chabot Cave, Boulogne Pont d'Arc, Ariège Gorge, France. ca. 3000 BCE. Mesurette de la culture et de la communication, direction régionale des affaires culturelles des royaumes, services régionales de Ariège. I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong. Paint on limestone, approximate height 6 feet. In the center of this wall are four horses, each behind the other, startling realistic space. Below them, two rhinoceroses fight. It is very, very beautiful art. At first, during the Paleolithic era, or the Stone Age, from the Greek palos meaning old and lithos meaning stone, the cultures of the world sustained themselves on game and wild plants. The cultures themselves were small, scattered, and nomadic, although evidence suggests some interaction among. This is figure 1.1, but among the various groups. As the Ice Age covered the northern hemisphere and began to recede around 10,000 BCE, agriculture began to replace hunting and gathering, and with it a nomadic lifestyle that gave way to a more sedentary way of life. The consequences of this shift were enormous and rushed in the Neolithic era, which was 10,000 BCE, or which was the New Stone Age. Referring back to 1.1, the map of the Paleolithic caves in southern France. And turn up that. This figure It is entitled 1.2 The Great River Valley Civilizations 2000 BCE. Agriculture thrived in the Great River valleys throughout the Neolithic era, but by the end of the period, urban life had developed there as well, and civilization has been merged. As ice covering the northern hemisphere began to recede around 10,000 BCE, agriculture began to replace hunting and gathering, and with it, a nomadic lifestyle, a way to give a more sedentary way of life. The consequences of this shift were enormous, and rushed into the Neolithic era, or the New Stone Age, which is 10,000 BCE. I apologize, I've already read that. In the great river valleys of the Middle East and Asia, map 1.2 as described above, distinct centers of the people evolved in common pursuit, began to form more and more sophisticated civilization. The rise of these civilizations in India and China are discussed in Chapter 3. A civilization, which is a key term, a civilization is a societal, economic, and political entity distinguished by the ability to express itself through images and the written languages. Civilization develops when the environment of a region can support large and productive populations. Increasing population requires an increased production of food and other foods, not only to support itself, but to trade for other commodities. Organizing this level of trade and production also requires an administrative elite to form and establish priorities. The existence of such an elite is another characteristic of civilization. Finally, as the history of cultures and around the world makes abundantly clear, one of the major ways that societies have acquired the goods they want and simultaneously organized themselves was by means of war. With this book, then, with the first inklings of civilization cultures in prehistoric times, evidence by which it survives in cave paintings and small sculptures dating back to more than 25,000 years before the invention of writing, sometimes after 10,000 BCE, these cultures created myths and legends that explain the origins of relations to the world. Then, ever since cave paintings were first discovered, scholars have been marveling at the skill of the people who have produced them, but have been equally fascinated by their bare existence. Why were these paintings made? Most scholars believe that they possess some sort of agency, that is, that they were created to exert some power or authority over the world of who came into contact with them. Chabot said that. Until recently, it was generally accepted that such works were associated with the hunt. Perhaps the hunter seeking game in times of scarcity hoped to conjure up it by depicting it on cave walls, or perhaps such drawings were magic charms meant to ensure a successful hunt. But Chabot, fully 60% of the animals hidden at the walls were never or rarely hunted. Such animals such as lions, rhinoceroses, bears, panthers, and woolly mammoths. One of them depicts two rhinoceros fighting horn to horn on a bench beneath four horses that appear to be looking on. Figure 1.1. No. That one. With that role, then, these drawings play the daily lives of the people who created them. The caves may have seemed of some sort of ritual space, as a ritual rite or ceremony habitually practiced by a group, or often in a religious or quasi-religious context. That's a key term. These caves, for instances, might understood such gateways of the underworld to the death and symbols of the womb and birth, or pathways known to the world of dreams experienced in the dark and night, or rites connected with such passions that may have been connected to them. The general arrangement of the animals, painting by the species or gender, or often distinct chambers of the caves, suggests some of the paintings that it may have served as lunar calendars predictive of the seasonal migration of the animals. Whatever the case, surviving human footprints indicate that these caves were ritual gathering places in some way served a common good. At Chabot, the use of color suggests that the paintings serve some sort of sacred or symbolic function. For instance, almost all the paintings in the entrance to the cave were painted with deep and red pigmented, derived from the ores of rich iron oxide. Deeper inside the cave, in areas as more difficult to reach, the vast majority of these animals are painted in black pigments derived from rich ores such as manganese dioxide. The shift in color appears to be intentional, but we can only guess its meaning. These skillfully drawn images that show well even raise more important questions. The artists themselves seem to have understood and practiced several kinds of perspective drawing. This is a key term. Perspective drawing, that is, they were able to convey a sense of three-dimensional space on a two-dimensional surface. In painting and produced in the beginning of this chapter, several horses appear to stand behind one another, figure 1.1. That at the top warp overlaps a black line as if preparing over the branch to bow over the other animal. In no other cave yet together do drawings show use of such shading or modeling so that the horse's head seem to have volume and dimension. What they're speaking about is the fact that this horse is in front of that horse, so it is casting a shadow on the neck, so that this horse appears behind this one. And yet these cave paintings, rendered more than 30,000 years ago, predate the cave paintings, and rendering more than 30,000 years ago, predate other cave paintings by at least 10,000 years, and some by much as 200 or 20,000 years. One of the cave paintings that depicts human figures found in Lascaux, in the George Gorn region of the southern western France. What appears to be a male wearing a bird's head lies masked in the head of a disemboweled bison, figure 1.2. What is this one? Cave painting, bird-headed man and bison rhinoceros, Le Croix Cave, Dargron, France, ca. 15,000 to 13,000 BCE. Paint on limestone, approximately 9 feet. In 1963, Le Croix was closed to the public so that conservators could fight a fungus attacking the paintings. Most likely, the fungus was caused by carbon dioxide exhaled by visitors. An exact replica called Le Coteau was built and can be visited. The head of the horse, skipping ahead. Below is the hymn is the bird of a head spear thrower, a device that had enabled hunters to throw a spear farther and greater in force. Several examples of the spear hunters have survived. In Lacrosse's paintings, the hunter's spear has pierced the bite and stings hindquarters, and the rhinoceros charges to the left. We have no way of knowing whether it was an actual event or an imagined scene. One of the painting's most interesting and inexplicable features is a discrepancy between relatively naturalistic representation of animals and the highly stylized, most abstract realization of the human figure. Was a stick-like man added later by a different, less talented artist, or does the image suggest that man and beast are different orders of being? Before the discovery of Chauveau, historians divided the history of cave painting into a series of successful styles, each progressively more realistic, but Chauveau's painting, by far the oldest known, are the most advanced in their realism, suggesting that the artist's conscious quest for the realism, suggesting the artist's quest for the visual naturalism, that is, for representations that imitate the natural appearance of the animals. That is an artistic term. Not only were both red and black animals outlined, but their shapes were also modeled by spreading paint, either with the hands of a tool or in gradation lesions of color. Such modeling is extremely rare or unknown elsewhere. In addition, the artist further defined many of the animals' contours by scraping behind the wall, so the beasts seemed to stand out against deeper white ground. 3 handprints in the cave were eventually made by spitting paint at a hand placed at a wall, resulting in a stenciled image. Art, the Chauveau drawing success, does not necessarily evolve in a linear, progressive form of awkward beings to more sophisticated representations. On the contrary, already in the earliest works, people attained a very high degree of sophistication. Apparently, even from the earliest times, human beings could choose to represent the natural realistically or not, and the choice was to represent the world naturalistic terms should be attributed not necessarily to lack of skill or sophistication, but to other more culturally driven factors. I'm going to end here at the beginning of the Paleolithic era and its artifacts. If you like my content, please subscribe.